Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks Podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 27, featuring the top 5 high-concept Enterprise episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse, and I am the host of the TrekRanks Podcast, and I could not be more excited tonight. It took us 27 full episodes, but we finally did it. Tonight, we're taking on our first ever Enterprise-specific topic, and I think tonight's going to be one of those special deep cut kind of shows because we're continuing our high concept series with our top 5 high concept Enterprise episodes. So way back in episode 9 of Trek Ranks, we did our top 5 high concept Voyager episodes. And for that episode, one of our guests did such an amazing job, I just had to have him back on. So Adam Hunault is joining us live right here from Sector 001 in the LA quadrant. Adam, welcome back to the show, man.
Thank you for having me back. And it is always a pleasure to be invited back onto the Chris Farley show of Star Trek podcasts.
And he definitely means that as a compliment.
I do. It's like, remember that time, Jim, on Enterprise when there was a concept and it was like totally high?
And that was awesome. So awesome. I love Chris Farley. Fantastic. And by the way, Adam was on one of our other best ever shows, or definitely one of our best topics, with our top 5 episodes you grew to love in episode 15. So that was a fun one as well. And also joining us tonight, making her Trek Ranks debut, is Jenn Tifft. Jenn is coming to us straight from the Philadelphia quadrant, and this is her first ever podcast appearance, and we could not be happier that it's happening here on Trek Ranks. Jenn, so great to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Everybody who's listened to Trek Ranks will have heard Jenn previously in our temporal causality loop because she's submitted so many great selections for the show as EDAC Quarks, which is one of my favorite all-time Twitter handles. I love that. So
thank you.
It's awesome having you here. So Jenn, as we like to do with our first-time guests, I know that your Star Trek knowledge is super amazing, and I just want to ask kind of how you got into Trek and what your origin story was for your Trek fandom.
Okay, well, I think it's similar to a lot of Trek fans. When I was young, I watched a lot of TV, I'll admit, and there was a station that would play old TV shows. So I'd watch Adam West Batman and Linda Carter Wonder Woman and Star Trek, the original series. And Star Trek was my favorite. So when I got wind of the fact that they were making a new Trek, I was really excited about that, excited for there to be a modern, 80s Trek, it was very appealing to me. So I made sure I was there when Encounter at Farpoint aired. And pretty much right away, I realized that this was my thing. This is what I like. So since then, I've been, a fan of Trek in every incarnation, every series since that, since Encounter at Farpoint.
Yeah, I love that. So you watched every series since TNG as it was debuted live on air, right?
Yeah, as it aired, every series, every incarnation, love it all.
That's great. That's actually, I think, more rare than people think. So, all right, let's jump into our general order number 1 reset here at Trek Ranks, which starts with the fact that we love Trek, and we love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics to really just get the conversation started. And as the Vulcan Master likes to remind us each week, the main driver for all of our discussions here at the Trek Ranks Podcast is
infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
Our mantra here is no wrong answers at Trek Ranks. It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's about sharing the things that we love about Star Trek, and it's definitely not about nitpicking the things that we don't like, so you won't find that here. So bottom line, we love all Trek here, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery. It's all fair game here on the Trek Ranks Podcast. And a reminder that we use episodes as our shorthand, but the 13 films are totally in play as well. Unfortunately, not tonight, though, because Enterprise never got a film. So let's power up the Argus array so our listeners know exactly how they can message us.
Hailing frequencies are open.
You can check us out on the World Wide Web at TrekRanks.com and at the TricorderTransmissions.com. And if you'd like to leave us a message with your own picks, you can do that at 609-512-LLAP. At 609-512-5527. I'll give you that number again at the end of the show. You can also find the Tricorder Transmissions on Facebook. And for anybody out there enjoying all of our shows here at the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network, you might be interested in becoming a Patreon of our shows, which you can do at patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. And finally, you can reach me on Twitter at TrekRanks and also at Enterprise Extra. So hopefully we'll hear from you, because this show is definitely better when we're hearing from you. So to wrap it up, Adam, would you like to tell everybody how they can get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter at Adam Hunault. That's at ADAMHUNAULT.
And I already said it, Jen. You're EDAC Quarks. But tell everybody again your awesome Twitter handle.
Yeah, you can reach me at Twitter. I'm at EDAC Quarks. And please feel free to message me. I love talking Trek. And, you know, you'll find me after hours playing Tango with Quark and my girl Jadzia at Quarks. So
I love that. It's one of my all-time favorite Twitter handles.
oh, thank you.
For sure. And every time I hear it, I think of Julian or somebody in his quarters getting a mug out of the replicator with EDAC Quarks on it. Fantastic.
Advertise, you know, Frank, you like to advertise.
You got to promote. All right. I think we're ready to activate our Level One Diagnostic.
Diagnostic cycle will be complete in 20 seconds.
So this week's diagnostic cycle is a pretty important one for us to define how everybody's going to look at high concept storytelling. So Adam and Jen, without getting into your specific Prime Directive at this point, when you hear something's high concept, what does that mean to you? And Adam, I'm wondering if you're going to do kind of the same thing you did during that Voyager episode, because that was great.
Yeah, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing. To me, high concept is there's a big idea at the center of it. Something like The Inner Light is a huge high concept episode. Picard lives this entire other life through the magic of technology, whereas something like Lessons is a much lower concept episode. You can do a million episodes where Picard falls in love, and you can do each one of them differently. It's all about the execution, and that's what makes it low concept.
Yeah, I get it. And plus, we're Team Bosch here.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, speak for yourself.
Oh, sorry, Jen. All right, Jen, how about you? When you think of high concept, how do you break it down?
Okay, so similar to what Adam said, as something that's high concept, has a real unique premise, that can be easily explained, like you said, just a couple sentences, but that unique premise permeates the entire work, and the entire work is about exploring whatever that concept is. And some examples of high concept TV shows that I like. First, I thought I'd stick with the Enterprise theme and go with Scott Bakula's show Quantum Leap. Was always one of my favorites.
Perfect.
That's high concept. Also, I love Mystery Science Theater 3000, Brian Fuller's Pushing Daisies. Recent example, a current example is The Good Place. I don't want to get too much into why The Good Place is a high concept show, because it gives some things away, but I'll just say it takes place in the afterlife, and it's currently my favorite show besides Star Trek Discovery, of course.
It's the greatest forking show ever.
It is the greatest forking show.
We love that show. Do you watch The Good Place, Adam?
I have not had the pleasure yet.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to bring up The Good Place is because it's completely different from Star Trek, but I think it shares the same philosophy, the same ethos with Star Trek. So I think that if there's a Star Trek fan who's in the market for a comedy, they should check out The Good Place, because I think chances are they'd enjoy it.
It really is
It
in the
is.
Star Trek ethos. That's brilliant. So,
Yep.
and it's totally high concept. So, from my end, I'm pretty similar to you guys. I'm a little different. That I focused a little more on the narrative structure and the complexity of the storytelling. That's always one of the things for me that combined with the sci-fi, some kind of big sci-fi, unique sci-fi conceit. So that's how I look at high concept. My main example is something like The Sixth Sense, which is one of my favorite films, and I find to be very original storytelling narrative, but also high concept in the conceit. All right, so that should take care of our diagnostic cycle. So let's jump into our Prime Directive as we break down our first ever Enterprise standalone topic.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
And I'm totally going to work bullshit into this show at some point as well.
You have to. That's awesome.
So, all right, Adam and Jen. So I'm curious about your Prime Directive. Did you find this easy or hard? Were your list long or short? Adam, how did you make your final picks?
Well, I will tell you, I had to work really hard for this episode. Enterprise is not necessarily the show that I go back to rewatch the most, and there was a lot of it that I had not seen since 2002. So I rewatched more than 20 episodes.
Wow.
Looking at possible candidates, getting ready for this, because there were honestly some that I did not remember that well. And there was one that I watched last night that I had not seen since the day it aired, which has made it onto my list in position number 3.
Oh my God, I cannot wait. That's probably new TrekRanks. I am so excited to hear what that episode is, and I can't believe you watched 20 episodes to prepare for TrekRanks. That is some awesome homework.
I'm glad you're impressed.
All right. Jen, how about you? How did you, was your list long or short, easy, hard? Just curious how you broke it down.
Well, similarly, I also thought that this would be a challenging topic because Enterprise, I don't really think of high concept when I think of Enterprise. Voyager, definitely, that's more their wheelhouse. But Enterprise is more, character arcs and story arcs and action, so I thought it would be difficult from the end that there wouldn't be a lot of options. But then when I actually started going through the episode lists, I'm checking off, wait a minute, this is high concept, this one, check. And it became difficult from the other end. There are a lot more options than I was expecting. But it turned out that the 5 episodes I knew. I knew from the beginning what they were going to be.
Got it.
But I had a lot. I didn't think there would be a lot of secondary systems, but there were tons. I tried to keep it into like what the best high concept was instead of what my favorite episodes were. So you know what I mean. So it was more like the episodes that don't have an A plot and a B plot. It's just strictly about that concept. So mostly standalone episodes. But it's Enterprise, so it's hard to get away from the story arcs entirely. But so I might have deviated from that a little bit, but that was what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's great. I have difficulty sometimes separating just the episode I love the most.
Right.
So for me, I think the enhanced special effects via CGI in comparison to other Trek series, it kind of lends itself for me to I think to the series that it had some bigger kind of high concept stories that were based around things they could do that maybe you couldn't do in other shows. So I still think Voyager had the kind of grandest scale in terms of high concept sci-fi, but I think Enterprise was nipping at its heels in terms of high concept, which is why we're doing it second. So I went through all 4 seasons and put together a really long list of unique and what I feel like were kind of big epic stories. And like I said, they had a mix between kind of high concept, big sci-fi conceits, and also some unique storytelling narratives. But it was tough to narrow down. I was struggling up until I say that every week, but it's true every week. So I'm going to keep saying it. So somehow though, we came up with a list of 5 and a lot of secondary systems. So I feel like this episode is going to be a lot of fun. And I have to say that with only 4 seasons of episodes to choose from, I think we just might have some duplicates today. Maybe. We'll see. Who knows? But if we do, make sure you listen for this sound. All right, let's do this third Roboticon. It's time for the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
And just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our 5-word summary and a hashtag, which is our normal TrekRanks staple here to kind of tease our pick. And then we'll reveal our episode title and talk about it. And at the end, hopefully we'll have some time for some secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. So, Adam, let's start with you. What's your number 5 pick for a high concept Enterprise episode?
Okay, number 5. 5 words are: insignificant mistakes have significant consequences. Hashtag, they're going to want a piece of our action. It's season 2, episode 8, The Communicator.
Okay, I love this pick. By the way, this is on my secondary systems. Fantastic start.
So the reason why I chose this episode is that they took a joke from the end of a TOS episode and they turned it into a high concept for an entire episode of Enterprise. It is not a coincidence that the piece of equipment that they leave on the planet is not a scanner or a phase pistol, and it is a communicator. They're definitely referencing a piece of the action. So, and I just love how, they make this tiny mistake of leaving this thing behind. And they've got to go try to fix this mistake. And everything just snowballs out of control from there. Like, they cannot put the genie back in the bottle. And it comes to a point where, they've lost not only communicators, but a lot of equipment. They're risking losing a shuttle pod. Archer and Reed are probably going to be executed. And, they get out of it with their skins, but in the end, T'Pol points out, no, they did some serious damage, even if they recovered all of their equipment just with, exposing themselves to the degree that they did to this 1930s kind of fascist on the verge of a world war planet.
I love this pick. It's so great. That's exactly why it was on my secondary system. It's one of my late cuts. The fact that they go back and search for it, just make it worse and worse and worse. And I love when they scan them and realize they're aliens, or they think they're mutated people from the other faction, right? So really, really high concept all the way through. Jen, what was your take on the communicator?
Yeah, I love this episode. I like you said, I love how they take, just the one simple mistake of losing the communicator and just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. And it makes me wonder if, maybe there's going to be some kind of protocol put in place because of this.
I imagine that Spock and Kirk and Bones, right after they finished having a laugh about Bones' lost communicator, they just pressed a button and it just blew the communicator up.
And great callback to a piece of the action. That's a great layer to that story. All right, Jen, how about you? What's your number 5 pick?
Okay, my number 5 pick, 5 words and a hashtag. Your inquiry was not recognized. Hashtag brain power. It's season 2, episode 4, Dead Stop.
Yes. Great 5 words.
Thank you.
Roxanne Dawson.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
She directed this and she was the voice of the computer.
The analysis of your vessel is complete. Select a method of compensation to begin the repair process.
Who am I speaking with?
Your inquiry was not recognized.
Is there someone here I can speak with?
Your inquiry was not recognized.
I don't think there's anyone back there.
Perhaps the station's automated.
Are you saying you can repair all our systems?
Select a method of compensation to begin the repair process.
So I love this episode. I love the idea of this, this automated station that can just fix anything really fast and really cheap. On the surface, really cheap. They found out there was a big cost. I love that you don't know what's wrong. Something's wrong, but you don't know what, and you kind of go along with the characters as they try to figure it out too. I love that Archer's suspicious right away, and I love that. But I love that Trip is interested just from
he just wants to eat caffeine.
he loves that replicator, but he's interested just from an engineering standpoint of, how do they run this whole ship? The only room we're not allowed in is a really tiny room. They need like a big room for a supercomputer, and he goes off on an exploring, to try to figure out just how it works from an engineering perspective, and then it snowballs from there till they discover the horrifying brain, linked brain supercomputer, which is also just an interesting concept.
Yeah, we just here's your payment. Oh, we just need one of your comatose crew members to help power our station.
Right, no big deal.
I love the scene where they are trying to break into the thing, and it beams them like straight into the bridge in front of Archer, and they're just
and to Paul just gives him this look like, what the hell are you doing?
It's such a great.
And Archer gets so mad. He's like, you were lucky you didn't get beamed into outer space. But then in the next breath, he's like, did you see anything interesting?
Right.
Did you find anything?
How about you, Adam? What's your take on this one?
Oh yeah, I love this one. This isn't one of the ones I rewatched actually, so it's been a little while since I've seen it. But I remember just the look of it being so great. I remember really enjoying how it continues out of Minefield.
Yes. Yep.
One of the first moments of a really direct continuity in Enterprise. Yeah, I mean, I think this episode definitely teaches us that if someone's fixing your car and is not overcharging you, you should be very suspicious.
The amazing production design on it. It's glad you brought that up. All right. So my number 5 pick, my 5 words in a hashtag is tone setting Prime Directive quest begins. Hashtag I love the Menk. And my episode, of course, is season 1, episode 13, Dear Doctor. It's my number 15 episode at TrekRanks. It's an amazing episode. It's obviously the one where Phlox is dealing with the conundrum of trying to help 2 humanoid species that are evolving at the same time on a planet, which I think is an awesome, super cool, high concept sci-fi conceit. And I love this episode. I love the slow pacing. I love the performances. I feel like it's got kind of a double-edged sword. So it's got the first dilemma with the Prime Directive of the Valakians asking for warp drive, but Archer's realizing that we can't really do that. And then this second point where they realize in trying to provide medical help that they're actually going to change the course of the planet's natural evolution and what their conundrum is. It's one of my all-time favorite episodes, clearly. And you said it before about the Prime Directive. I love the quote from Archer at the end. It's a little on the nose, but I think it totally works. Someday my people are going to create some kind of doctrine, but until they write that directive, got to figure it out on our own. So one of my favorite episodes. Jen, what's your take on Dear Doctor?
Oh, absolutely. This is one of my favorite episodes, too. I didn't consider it from a high concept place, but now I kind of see how it is with the 2 species evolving on the same planet. I really enjoy how they Phlox, writing a letter to Dr. Lucas. I really enjoy that.
Oh, yes.
That method of communicating the story, which kind of adds a little gravitas, kind of like he's confessing.
Yep.
Because, and then another thing I like about this episode is did they do the right thing?
Right. We don't know.
Like that's one of the things I love the most about Trek is sometimes you can see both sides and it's just there's no great answer, and both actions are bad options, and both options are good options, and it's just
and that's why I label this as high concept, because I really like the sci-fi conceit of 2 sentient species evolving at kind of different levels. That's really clever. How about you, Adam?
Dear Doctor is probably one of my top 5 episodes of Enterprise overall. I also didn't consider it. I did consider it for a second for this list, and I was watching it and I decided it wasn't necessarily high concept. It was kind of more of like Data's Day for Phlox.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And conundrum the conundrum itself is very high concept, but it's a very small part of the episode. But there's so much I like about the episode, not just the Phlox and Archer stuff, but the stuff with Phlox and Truman Cutler is
Kelly Lamar was great. So.
Quite enjoyable.
Yeah, this is a good episode to define kind of the way I look at high concept, because I really do look at the complex narrative combined with some level of sci-fi conceit that's unique or original or kind of grand. So
this is one of two that I really wanted to shoehorn into this episode and talk about, and I just couldn't. I just didn't feel like I could justify it. So
and I was the opposite.
Thanks for picking it.
I was trying to keep it off my list, but I just at the end I was like, nope, I'm doing it. All right, let's move to round 4. What were we gonna say?
I was gonna say it's funny because I had a couple I really wanted to shoehorn onto this list too, but I just couldn't do it.
Hooray for secondary systems! All right. Let's go to round 4. Adam, what's your number 4 high concept Enterprise episode?
Okay, my 5 words are no human rights for aliens, # even Porthos has a name. It is season 2, episode 22, Cogenitor.
Yes.
So I picked this one, for all of the obvious reasons. It's such an excellent early Prime Directive, proto Prime Directive episode. They've decided from Dear Doctor and other episodes like it that they shouldn't get involved with other cultures. And, Trip sees the situation where this third gender, this cogenitor, is not allowed to have a name, not allowed to read, not allowed to have a life. And bizarrely, nobody else seems to see it. Everyone else just loves the Vissians. And Phlox and T'Pol are even suggesting that Trip is just hung up about the fact that they have 3 genders, which is completely off base. So he teaches her to read, and the whole thing just goes south when she wants to stay on Enterprise, and Archer eventually decides that he's going to hand her back, and she kills herself. So, it's a great episode. The reason why I've only put it in at number 4 on the list is I feel like the ending could have been better. I feel like they set up a very interesting circumstance and then just gave us a very orthodox Star Trek ending of, don't mess around with other people's cultures. But I feel like Trip actually has a point here. The Vissians are not a pre-warp civilization. They're more advanced than the humans. And really, I think there's a situation, there comes a point where the Prime Directive does go so far with interfering, but at a certain point you do have to say, look, if you want to run your society like The Handmaid's Tale, I'm not going to stop you, but we can't be friends. And, Archer makes a point that the cogenitor didn't ask Trip to teach it how to read. And that's true, but it was awfully eager to learn once it understood, once that idea kind of penetrated the cultural programming it had been given.
Yeah, it's a tough one because of course all the points you make are right, of course, but then the flip side of...
And I even feel like when Archer is chewing Trip out at the end that, he's taking everything out on Trip and saying, Trip, this was your fault, but he's also probably blaming himself because he was the one who decided to hand her back.
Yeah, I think that's part of it as well. But it's tough because this is another one where there's no right or wrong answer. You see what it's obviously not as simple as Trip's solution because that didn't work. So Jen, what's your take on this?
I love this episode. It's on my secondary systems. I'm totally on Team Trip. Obviously the way he went about it, sneaking around, obviously wasn't going to turn out right. But once the cogenitor asked for asylum, I don't see how in the world Archer could have denied that. This episode really resonates because I think it's one of the most applicable to stuff that's going on today. And the Vissians, they're the Vissians, right? Yeah. The Vissians say, you don't know anything about our culture. You don't have the right to say, which is an argument that some people use today to say, like, well, you kind of have to be tolerant of my intolerance, which is utter bullshit. You know,
Yeah,
we got it in there.
It's total bullshit.
Yes, but you know, and I just think that I'm sorry, that's not the right answer. I understand that these are different cultures, but once your culture is, you know, subjugating people, it ends there.
I might have expected something like this from a first-year recruit, but not you. You did exactly what I'd do. If that's true, then I've done a pretty lousy job setting an example around here. You're a senior officer on this ship. You're privy to the moral challenges I've had to face. You know I've wrestled with the fine line between doing what I think is right and interfering with other species. So don't tell me you know what I would have done when I don't even know what I would have done.
I didn't think it would hurt to teach her how to read.
Then you didn't think hard enough. We're out here to meet new species, not tell them what to do.
Teaching her to read is no different than you giving them books or movies.
Giving them books is a lot different than suggesting they defy their culture.
Well, and I think they do such a great job making the Vissians interesting or very sympathetic in other ways. Like they love to explore and they're open and they're nice and they want to share their technology with us and they like Shakespeare, which is always a good thing on Star Trek.
That's right. And I love those scenes. I love those scenes with Archer and the Vissian captain, I guess, when they're flying and Archer's, they have such a great natural rapport and it's going so well. You know, finally, a first contact is going so well for Archer and you're right that like everything else about them seems like they're a good fit to be friends with the humans, and it's just
this is a deep heavy topic, and of course we're all team Trip on this. It's just a matter of that outcome is just so heartbreaking, and obviously
it is
no easy solutions. And I love Archer's first contact with Tomalak. So
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Katsulis. I can never say his name, but
Andreas Catulus, maybe.
Catulus, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna edit that out because we don't know how to say his name. No, we're not. We're leaving it in. Okay, Jen, what's your number 4 pick?
Okay. Oh, my number 4 pick. Okay. Archer and Daniel's Excellent Adventure. # Time Enough at Last. It's season 2, episode 1, Shockwave Part 2.
Oh, Shockwave Part 2. I like the designation.
Just Part 2 because only Part 2 is where the high concept comes in. And what I consider high concept in this is the part of Archer and Daniels being trapped in this post-apocalyptic 31st century debris field, you know? And I love this for several reasons. First, I'm just a sucker for Last Man on Earth sci-fi in general. Like you've got me. Like that's just very interesting to me. And they're in the 31st century. The world, you know, the timeline as they know has been destroyed. They've got no electricity, no time ports or whatever Daniels uses, you know. And I love that what they do have is a library, and the library
and a copper spoon.
And a copper spoon for some reason that Archer bang the copper off so Daniels can use it. So that he can MacGyver this communicator. I was going to say I love the design of the library. I think it's just beautiful. And I love the Daniel's surprise that there's actually books. You know, in his timeline it would have been all on data rods or whatever it is. So I love the look of the 31st century, no Federation landscape. But I also like about this episode is how they work together with the people that are in the 22nd century to bring Archer back. And they have this really intricate plot of like sneaking into Daniel's quarters and tricking Selleck into activating this device, and everyone has their little part, kind of like a little Ocean's 11 scenario of everybody working together to get Archer back, because one of the fun things about this concept to me is how in the world are they going to get back? How are they going to get out of this? It feels like the writers wrote themselves into a corner, but it worked out. I love it.
It's pretty clever how they get it back, and when Archer punches Selleck in the face, it's
pretty satisfying.
It's worth the payoff.
He like jumps out of the the little plasma tube.
It's a great moment.
I've tried to reach you. I've tried for 2 days. I did what you told me, but Archer wasn't on Enterprise. There was some kind of temporal signature. I need instructions. I don't know how to operate this device. I need your help. I hear you, but I don't understand. Repeat what you said, please. Repeat what you said.
I said you're an ugly bastard.
Adam, how about your take on Shockwave 2?
Yeah, I love the moment when he jumps out of the future guy's column of light and punches Selleck. One of the I've never been able to get past the gazelle speech in this episode that Archer gives. It's just one of the. If you ever do a top 5 cringe-worthy moments, I think it will be in my number 1.
I think that the whole end scene, everybody's speech is kind of cringy, because Trip like yells at them, and Archie gives this gazelle speech, which is, I agree, is cringeworthy, and then T'Pol's is kind of schmaltzy.
First of all,
the whole scene is too much.
First of all, we're never gonna do that topic on Trek-Ranks, and secondly,
with the Chris Farley show,
and secondly, when we do top 5 speeches, I'm gonna pick it just to spite you.
Oh,
you wouldn't.
All right, let's go.
Top 5 speeches is a good topic, though.
That's on the long list. It's definitely on the long list. All right, let's go to my round 4 pick, and we have a duplicate, and I'll just give my 5 words and a hashtag. Mysterious space station helps Enterprise. Yay! Hashtag TOS trilogy reincarnated. So the one thing I'll add to our previous discussion of Dead Stop from season 2 of Enterprise, one of my favorite things about this episode, it's not part of the high concept conceit, is this episode more than any other feels like we've reincarnated the TOS trilogy of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. The way Archer, T'Pol, and Trip are interacting and working this. I love this feeling of the Enterprise trilogy. I just remember the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, it really feels like they've nailed that kind of dynamic. And it's one of my favorite things about that episode, in addition to Mayweather dying but not dying and then being in a coma and hooked up to some crazy machine. So, all right. Dead Stop is our first duplicate, so let's move on to round 3. And Adam, what's your number 3 pick here in the soup round?
Okay, well, my soup round pick is the one that made it onto my list after I watched it last night.
Yes.
The 5 words are lab mice school the scientists. Hashtag someone always dies.
Oh,
it's season 4. Episode 11, Observer Effect.
Observer Effect. I love this pick.
So I saw this back when I was watching season 4 on the first run. I don't think I was very impressed with it. I sort of thought of it as, one of the bottle shows for that year so they could do the big trilogy arcs. And watching it last night, I was just blown away. It kind of has 2 competing high concepts. It's got, this mysterious disease has infected Trip and Hoshi, and they're racing to find a cure for it. And then at the same time, 2 Organians have come to Enterprise, and they're inhabiting a number of people, but mainly Reed and Travis. And they're, you get the sense that they come to this planet quite often just to see how different humanoids react to this virus, which inevitably, kills sometimes all of them, sometimes a few of them. We know the Klingons just blew up their landing party. So, just great concepts, just very, very interesting scenes. The scene at the beginning where the 2 observers are playing chess as Malcolm and Travis is just a great way to open an episode. And we learned some great stuff about Hoshi's backstory. We learned that she's apparently security officer's worst nightmare, and that she can
a reprobate. Yep.
that she runs poker games on one hand, and then also she can override all of Enterprise's security systems quite easily because of her understanding of languages and patterns. And then
she says math is just another language, she says. I love that line. Love it.
And then it comes down to this moment at the end where Archer is basically telling the Organians all the reasons why what they're doing is wrong. And even though they're not directly responsible, they still have a responsibility, and sways them, and they solve the problem for them. Although they do erase their memories of the entire thing.
This episode
has hardly any special effects in it, and it just shows what you can do with just actors delivering wonderful lines in standing sets.
Agreed. For me, this episode was just pure unpredictable joy. I've said this before, but the first time I watched this episode, the smile on my face when they revealed the Organian connection at the end. I mean, I literally was I was filled with joy because I love Errand of Mercy is one of my favorite episodes. Yeah. I thought it was a perfect connection, tribute, however you want to say it, the way they connected this to the Organians, who I have loved since I was a little kid. I love this episode. The script is amazing. And yeah, it's an awesome pick. Awesome pick. How about you, Jen? What's your take?
Oh, I agree. I love Observer Effect. One of the things that Enterprise did really well was throw in a little bit of those little nods to other pieces of Trek lore like that. There, when I think back on it, there's a lot of those, and really lovingly thrown in. So that was nice to see. I liked, like Adam was saying about the actors. One of the things that stood out to me with this was no matter whose bodies they were inhabiting, you could tell who was the seasoned observer and the new observer, just by the way they were acting. And I think everyone did such a wonderful job with that. The one thing, this is on my secondary system, so what kept it off my list is something that bothers me a little bit about Trek sometimes is the human exceptionalism. Like they've been observing this for, 800 years, but the humans were so different that they decided to.
I'm picking this speech too then, just to spite you. Another great Archer.
I have to admit, I roll my eyes at that a little bit too, but I think for Star Trek, it is baked in. Right. Like it is part of Star Trek.
I understand why you won't get involved with a species' natural development. I faced that decision myself. It isn't an easy one to make.
Then we agree.
No, we don't. Our encounter with the virus was an accident, one that you could have prevented.
Then how would we ever learn about you?
Ask us. Talk to us. Just like you're doing now.
Talking is a limited form of communication for us. We're much more advanced than humans.
Not from where I'm standing. Maybe you've evolved into beings with abilities I can't comprehend, but you've paid a hell of a price. You've lost compassion and empathy. Things that give life meaning. If that's what it takes to be advanced, I don't want any part of it.
It is nice that one of human qualities is compassion. That's what got to them was the compassion, and that's a nice thing. But I don't think we'd be the only species in 800 years. But that's just me.
Well, then you'd be wrong, Jen. All right,
I think back to a line that Soval said in the Vulcan trilogy at some point, and he says something like he's talking about human qualities, and Trip says, "Well, surely other species have those qualities," and Soval says, "Yes, but not in such." Actually, he might be saying this to Forrest. I forget. He says, "Not in such confounding abundance," or something like that.
I don't remember those 3 episodes at all. So, okay, let's.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty forgettable overall.
All right, Jen. Let's hear your soup round pick. What's your number 3 choice?
Okay, my soup round pick. Paranoid Denobulans shouldn't have phasers. # things that go bump in the expanse.
Wow.
It's Season 3, episode 16, Doctor's Orders.
Okay.
This is a deeper cut, I admit. This is the one where every member of the crew has to be put into a coma to survive going through an anomaly, except for Phlox and T'Pol, maybe, is left, and they're, Phlox is left to run the entire ship by himself. And this is more of a, to me, this one stands out as more like a psychological, thriller. Like it's all about the mood, the atmosphere, and how the paranoia just gets worse and worse and worse. I think I'm drawn to it because it's another, like I said, it's kind of another Last Man on Earth scenario. You're alone in this creepy, industrial space, and John Billingsley's performance is just, is always stuck out. He does such a good job of scaring himself. We get to hear about he writes to Dr. Lucas again, which I really like.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it's funny because he just, once we get to the end and he says, well, a lot of what I wrote to you was basically my paranoid delusions, but I'm going to leave him in because he might enjoy reading about it, which I love that, add that to their relationship. Super creepy. I'm kind of a scaredy cat. You know what I mean? So I really I would jump right along with Phlox, at all these moments. And I'm sorry, the insectoid Xindi is scary to me.
It's definitely a keep you guessing episode. And that is a great scene with the insectoids coming on board. No, I hadn't considered this one. It's definitely a high concept. Love it. And we get to see naked Phlox.
Yeah, yes, with the ridges on his back and everything.
Right. So that's a plus. I mean, come on. Adam, what's your take?
Depending on how you look at it, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough.
I guess this is one I don't really remember that well. I remember it slightly. It's not one of the standouts of season 3 for me, but maybe I just need to rewatch it.
I can see it's kind of, like I said, if you're not a scaredy cat, it might not stick out to you. For me, I've actually been for my job, I've been in an industrial space like that by myself in this dark, creepy, with machinery and he really, really captured that feeling of just I didn't get delusional, but every little noise you hear, you think you see something out of the corner of your eye, and and it's he captured what it's like.
That's what it captures for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, so for my soup round pick, my number 3 pick, we've got another duplicate. So we don't need to go into too much detail here, but we just picked it a little while earlier from Adam. My 5 words in a hashtag: jaw-dropping TOS connection revealed, hashtag errand of awesomeness. I love the observer effect. Number 8 for me at TrekRanks, and we already kind of went through it, but I will add this is a Judith and Garfield Reeves Stevens script, and I think the way they connected to TOS and the Organians is just way too much fun.
I don't believe it. I was sure I would be the only one to pick this.
I love this episode. It's top 10 on my Enterprise list, so it's always been one of my favorites since the beginning.
It's a good one.
Lots of duplicates so far, I guess, just for me. So let's move to round 2. Adam, what's your number 2 pick?
Okay, well, my number 2 pick, 5 words are tiny parasites with huge consequences.
Yes.
Hashtag feels like a shuttle pod landed on my head. It's season 3, episode 8, Twilight.
Love it.
So this episode obviously has a huge high concept, time travel, alternate future, reset button thing going on. And, at first you might think, well, we've seen this on Voyager a 1,000 times before. But the thing about this episode that made it just really stand out for me is the effect that it had on the entire season going forward after that, because that they don't remember that this happened, but you remember that it happened, which means that something they don't, which is that every single thing in this mission now depends on Archer. The rest of the crew together is not going to get it done. They're not going to save Earth from the Xindi. And if they can't save Earth from the Xindi, then they can't save the entire galaxy from the sphere builders. So it's just this massive responsibility that all is depending on Archer, and he doesn't know it.
Yeah.
So for me, this took, the Xindi arc before this, I was like, yeah, okay, they got to save Earth. They'll probably do it. But the suspense, just anytime Archer was in danger after this, just was intense.
I love the way you frame that. That is such a great point. And this was just on my secondary systems pick. I really wanted to pick it because it's obviously a brilliant concept. And I think it's number 3 on my TrekRanks episode. So it's all-time classic episode. And the reset on this with the parasite is actually really pretty brilliant. It's when they revealed that, I was like, it just made a lot more sense than, and I love Year of Hell, but it made a lot more sense than just driving the ship into Anorax's time ship. I love that twist. Jen, how about you? What's your take on Twilight?
Yeah, Twilight's on my secondary systems as well. I love it. I really, really like the solution of these time parasites that if you destroy them, in one time, period, they'll be destroyed in all. And that's, like you said, that's such a unique way of resetting the timeline. I like that we get to see what would have happened if the Xindi won, like we get to see that. So we know what's like Adam said, what's at stake. The reason this stayed on my secondary systems is because it's just too sad from a character perspective. For Archer and T'Pol to end up like that. Like Archer's 51st dates with T'Pol and just to see him being wasted and her wasting her entire life because she's guilty. And it's just, it's too much sadness for me.
Sad.
But it's a great episode. And it's definitely a wonderful high concept.
It's brilliant.
Jen mentioned earlier with the Organians, the little mentions of things from earlier Trek that are dropped in. So I have to point out City Alpha 5.
Yes.
It's absolutely brilliant. The irony is just so thick you could cut it because you know that even if the Xindi don't find them here, they're doomed.
Yep. That's a great layer for sure. Awesome. All right, Jen, what's your round 2 pick?
Okay, my round 2 pick. Desperate Deceptions for Desperate Times. # Eternal Sunshine of the Xindi Mind. This is Season 3, Episode 14, Stratagem.
I had a feeling it was Stratagem. I love that 5 words.
Your mission, Captain Archer, should you choose to accept it.
Yes. Mission Impossible with Captain Archer. But yeah, so this is the one where Archer, has the ability to erase Degra's short-term memory and takes advantage of that and concocts this elaborate alternate reality for him to try to trick him into telling the location of the Xindi weapon. What I really like about this episode, what makes it stand out to me, is that it's kind of a role reversal from other Trek episodes of Trek. In any other Trek series, our hero would be in Degra's position. The bad guy would be trying to get information out of them, and they'd have to just figure out what's real and what's not. So seeing it from the opposite side, Archer and the whole entire crew developing this elaborate deception, with shaking the shuttle pod and the pretend shuttle pod and everything, and the bloodworms, and it's something that you wouldn't normally see a Star Trek crew do. So that made it interesting to me.
Yeah. The epic cat and mouse in this episode is so great, and I love the double twist at the end where they fake him out that he thinks they've made it to the planet. It was definitely on my secondary systems.
And Archer is such a good liar. I mean, we see this a lot throughout the series, but especially here, I can't imagine any other captains being able to keep that up for so long. And especially at the end, when he realizes he's got him, like you said, the cat and mouse, and at the end, and he gets this grin on his face, Like, I've got you.
That is a great observation. Archer is a great liar.
He does it with such a ease,
Yeah, you wouldn't think he'd be good at it, but he kind of is.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. All right, finish up round 2. My number 2 pick is this is a classic. My 5 words and a hashtag. You made a damn good father, hashtag, and you were a damn good son. It is Similitude Season 3, Episode 10. It's my top 3 at Trek Ranks. And you clone your engineer to save said engineer and the human race. That is about as high concept as it gets. I love it. It's literally one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever in my book. And I like the structure where, again, my narrative, Prime Directive, where it starts with Trip's death, and you're trying to figure out where you think it's Trip's death, but it turns out it's Sim. So really clever, and the sci-fi conceit of a Lysarian desert larvae to grow a clone. I love this episode, and it leaves. I'm just a mess every time I listen to it because I am always in tears. So, Adam, what's your take on Similitude?
This one was definitely on my secondary systems, and I left it off because I was quite confident that one of you would pick it up for me. So yeah, I love this episode. I just rewatched it a few days ago, even though it was one that I really didn't need to watch again to refresh my memory. But I just wanted to. Just amazing episode. So much revealed about Trip's character through Sim. An excellent child actor playing the young Trip.
For sure, all of them, yeah.
Which is always wonderful on Star Trek because they're not always so good.
Nope.
I don't know if the person who played the maybe about 20-year-old Trip, who was only in one scene, if that was like Connor Trinneer's cousin or brother or something, but that was amazing casting for just one scene.
Yeah, none of the actors were related, but their continuity between the 3 or 4 of them was incredible.
I just love on this episode how the situation is just getting worse and worse for Archer. You know, we're in kind of the part of the Xindi arc where, you know, things are not going well, you know, for sure. Like they have not accomplished very much, and they're stuck, you know, with this stuff building up on their hull that's going to kill them all. And, you know, he's initially given this choice of like, oh, you can make this clone. And he's like, well, that doesn't sound very good, but it, you know, we don't have to hurt it. We don't have to kill it or anything. We just have to make it. And that's a bit weird, but in the situation, I'll do it. And then things just keep going wrong. And it's like, oh, actually, we do have to kill it.
Oh, that was so brutal.
Yeah, it's such a brutal episode for Archer. And at the end, when he's saying to Sim, like, I need Trip.
Yep. Such a great moment.
Amazing episode.
Jen, what's your take on Similitude?
Yeah, I think we'll be talking about this one again.
Yes. It's that good. Yeah. It's that good. All right. Let's jump to round 1. And Adam, what's your number 1 high concept Enterprise episode?
Okay. Well, for my number 1 pick, I decided that I'm going to cheat big time.
I love cheating.
So my 5 words are attack, spheres, time travel, madness. And the hashtag is, we'll do what we have to, Trip, whatever it takes. And my pick is the Xindi arc.
Okay.
I'm not just going with one episode here. That
is quite a cheat. But hey, it results in more Star Trek. That's great.
You know, so I'm not including every single episode in season 3 in this pick. It's really, the high concept is all kind of carried in just a couple of episodes. But there wasn't just one I could point to that included it all. And I just had to point it out. So we've got this attack on Earth. We've got sphere builders who are transforming the galaxy into something that they can live in. We've got the conflict between the sphere builders and the 26th Century Federation. We've got the anomalies that are require Trellium to insulate your ship, and it's making T'Pol go slowly mad. We've got the interplay between the various Xindi species. This setup, this arc, is just a high concept onion that you just peel apart, and there's more high concept under it. It's just such an incredible combination that I just could not choose anything else as the number 1 pick. And I think the thing about the Xindi arc also is that it happened, you know, just a little while after 9/11. 9/11 was a couple of years in the past. We were about 6 months into Iraq at this point. And it was sort of becoming clear that our reaction to 9/11 as a country was maybe not so high-minded, and that we were going to go out there and get our pound of flesh and more. And it was very interesting to see that situation reflected on Enterprise. And no Star Trek show except for Enterprise could have done it. Everyone else was too high-minded. But, the characters on Enterprise made some mistakes along the way and found a peaceful way, just barely, to resolve the situation without resorting to outright revenge. I think that the Xindi arc, maybe, when we talk about Star Trek, we talk about, has it stood the test of time well? And I think maybe the Xindi arc has not, but it was perfect for the time it was in, and it was so important at that time.
Oh, that's interesting. I was just about to say, I love that you picked this Xindi arc because I think it totally stands the test of time. I think it's that the front end of this new age of this new golden age of television with this season-long story arc. And I really think they did a great job with it for all the reasons you just said, peeling that onion back, just one thing after another. And I really do think it's underrated and definitely stands the test of time. How about you, Jenn? What's your take on the Xindi arc? And
I agree. I think it stands the test of time. I enjoy the Xindi arc. I actually had a cheat on my secondary systems list, which was the Xindi as a species.
Oh, yes. Okay.
What an amazing high concept that these 6 different sentient beings evolved on this planet and how different they are. And one of the things I enjoyed watching the Xindi arc was anytime they would be in that council room, the Xindi council, and you'd have, this giant insect talking to this giant reptile with the aquatics in the tank and how interesting that was, how I enjoyed exploring that. And I wish we could have seen a little bit more. I like to think about what it would look like if that happened on Earth, and you'd have, humans and chimpanzees and dolphins and, whatever kind of insect that's intelligent. I don't know what, like all, in a council. And it's just such a unique concept. And then that they weren't united. There was factions and this species was mad at this species. I thought it was really interesting.
I love that you cheated on your secondary systems with the Xindi, and Adam cheated on his number one pick with the Xindi arc because I love season 3. I love the Xindi, and I think it's totally worthy of this topic. So, Jenn, let's jump into your number one pick, which I think we might know what it is. So I'm just going to cue this up right now.
You're right. My 5 words in hashtag, though, are bravery, sacrifice, destiny, humanity, love. Hashtag Earth needs Enterprise, Enterprise needs Trip. Season 3, episode 10, similitude.
Who's got goosebumps? I do.
What more can I say? I mean, just outstanding acting, interesting, high concept.
I'm sorry I doubted you, Doc.
No need to apologize.
You're serious. You see, I don't just remember Trip's childhood. I remember mine. You made a damn good father. You were a damn good son. You said to me once that commanding a starship was what you were meant to do. I guess this is what I was meant to do. Good luck, Captain.
One of the interesting things is, again, this is Enterprise is different than the other Trek series. Every Trek series is different, right. But both Phlox and Archer do things that I don't necessarily think other captains and doctors would. Trip gets injured, and right away Phlox is like, well, I got this, blank cartridge larvae or whatever in the back here. I can make it. I can make a clone if you want. And Archer pretty much right away, there's that scene in his writing room with T'Pol and she's like, have you given more thought to, Dr. Phlox's suggestion? He's like, oh yeah, I approved that hours ago. Like, I think there would have been a lot more soul searching going on. Part of that is like you said, at this point, he's just so desperate, like everything's going wrong. And Trip is also his best friend, can't ignore that factor. And I think that part of Trip being his best friend makes his interactions with Sim all that more poignant too, because he's kind of talking to Trip and it's just, I wonder how different this would be if it wasn't Trip, which is another interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. A good thing to call out too is that, again, the high concept conceit of where the kids growing up with their Tripp's growing up with the Sims growing up with the memories of Trip.
Yes.
And that was super cool when they revealed that. It's like, okay, that's kind of creepy.
And yeah, it's so creepy. And I don't know if that makes it harder or easier. I think it makes it harder because
harder.
But also he's also lived a fuller life than Sim without Tripp's memories would have, because he remembers all that. And that's interesting too, as far as like, since we're talking about, like high concept sci-fi, that I think this is about when all that research was coming out about DNA and about how DNA does have some mimetic, not obviously to this extent, but
right,
like,
of course.
Like if the example that I enjoyed reading was, like, I'm cheap because my grandmother lived through the Great Depression. You know what I mean? And I like inherited that cheapness. You know what I mean? Like that those sort of characteristics or like, diseases that your grandparents have, the DNA remembers those, things like that. And I thought this is a really neat extension of that. And it added a lot to the ending, the sadness of the ending.
That's awesome.
I forgot to mention it before, but just one minor moment in this episode, which I absolutely love. So Trip is doing this experiment on the warp reactor where he's going to compress the antimatter stream and put it in there, which, by the way, is what he learned how to do from the Vissian engineer in Cogenitor.
Yes.
And so the experiment is working for just a second, and the warp reactor starts to go wum, 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 like the Enterprise D's lithium crystal chamber. And Trip just goes, "That's a beautiful sound."
Oh, that's a great moment.
All right, well, let's close it out with another season 3 Xindi choice in the Xindi arc. So my number one pick, my 5 words in a hashtag: mysterious distortion and spheres introduced. Hashtag Cochrane equation not constant. And this episode is a bit underrated. It's Anomaly from season 3, episode 2. It's top 15 for me at TrekRanks. And honestly, it's one of my favorite sci-fi conceits ever. I love this episode when it first aired, and they introduced the spheres. And I said it, I find it hugely underrated. I love the beginning where the distortions are kind of rolling through the ship. Archer's coffee's up in the air, the food in the mess hall's flying around, and at the end when they figure out, kind of they get jumped. The part where they get jumped by the Osarians who steal their technology and run away is not necessarily high concept, but the conclusion here where they figure out how to chase them down, they disappear, they find their way into this subspace area and discover the spheres. I love that moment. I love what it sets up for the whole season, which is similar to your pick, Adam, with the Xindi arc. And I like what you said, creating this onion that you're just peeling back all season, and the mystery of the Xindi and the sphere builders. I just love that moment, and I love this episode. It's one of Mike Sussman's and one of my favorites. So right away, I thought this was going to be near the top for me, and it ended up being my number one. So I'm curious what you guys think of this one, because it's definitely a little bit of a off the beaten track, deep cut pick. Adam?
I never knew that this was underrated. I thought this was one of the best episodes of season 3. I've felt that when I watched it. I mean, I remember going into season 3 of Enterprise and seeing the first episode of the Xindi and just being, a little underwhelmed, and then coming back and having this sphere episode and just feeling like, oh, wow, there is way more to this season than just, we've got to find these guys before they launch an attack and destroy our planet.
Yeah, same.
A lot more going on here. So, yeah, I love this one.
I had the exact same feeling, and I don't know, maybe it's not underrated. Jen, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I didn't know this was underrated either. This is a wonderful episode.
It's probably not. I'm probably wrong, but I never hear it mentioned in, like, when people are talking about favorite episodes. And for me, I have it at number 11, which is pretty high. So, but maybe I'm just saying people don't have it quite as high as I do. But yeah, Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, there's interesting. I really like the visuals with the warping of the floors and everything, and then it's scary how when the person dies, like what it does to
distortion.
The distortion. Yeah, it's creepy visuals. It's to me the standout in this episode is Trip.
Yep.
Having to rewrite the Cochrane equation on the fly, and it's just the beginning of his like horrible engineering problems that he has to solve in this crazy, weird layer of outer space that they're in, and it's endlessly fascinating to me.
Agreed.
He got the hardest job in Starfleet.
Yeah, I love that it just sets up everything, and again, I'll say it the way you talked about, Adam, with the onion being peeled back for the whole season. So I love it. All right, let's jump into some quick secondary systems picks. I had 3 or 4 that you guys already mentioned. So, Adam, what was on your list? Anything you want to rattle off?
Yeah, well, an episode that I rediscovered, I didn't remember at all, and I really liked is the Catwalk.
Oh yeah,
where they all have to hide in the warp nacelles.
Yep.
I love this one because a lot of times in Enterprise they're doing like the first time they did such and such, but this time they're doing something that like never would have been done on any of the other series because they would have had shields that could have protected them from this, and it's really shows how fly by the seat of your pants they are. And then sweeps week November sweeps month. Remember what that was when they would have they would trot out their best stuff for the month of November. For season 3, it was Twilight, North Star, Similitude, and Carpenter Street. So I picked Twilight, but the other 3 are definitely secondary systems.
I love it.
Very surprised nobody mentioned North Star.
Well, I was going to say I have that's definitely I kind of when I do my secondary systems, I sometimes list my 2 toughest cuts, and that was definitely North Star because it's one of my comfort food picks from very early in Trek Ranks. And another one of my favorites is Stormfront because it doesn't get any more high concept than space Nazis.
That was on my list, as was E Squared.
Oh yeah, me too as well. So Jen, how about you? What else was on your list?
Yeah, we mentioned a lot of mine. I had Cogenitor and Observer Effect and Twilight, but I'm surprised nobody mentioned Carbon Creek.
Oh yeah,
it was a hard cut for me, honestly.
I didn't think of that, but it is high concept in terms of the structure and how they tell it. I mean,
I did think of that, but it was one of my picks for the underappreciated episode, so I thought I would just for the Grew to Love episode. Actually.
That's great.
And then I also had The Crossing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which I found interesting because there's the different twists of the aliens weren't trying to hide what they were doing. Like there was no mystery. It was like, hey, I'm in Tripp's body. This is pretty cool. You humans are pretty awesome. You know what I mean? Instead of like, there being some kind of a mystery of what's going on and why is Trip acting weird, and there wasn't anything in that. So I thought that was interesting from a high concept perspective, and also Singularity.
Oh yeah, another one
was interesting to me. 2. They all went crazy except for T'Pol, and got obsessed with different things and
get Archer's chair fixed.
Yes, yeah. Souping up Archer's chair in ridiculous ways, and the read alert.
Oh yeah, I love that. The read alert is fantastic. Yeah. All right, I had a couple more. I had Regeneration, which I think we'll get a lot of submissions for Regeneration.
Yeah. I just rewatched that for the first time, getting ready for this show, and that is not as bad as I thought it was.
I had the same.
No, the way it reconceptualizes First Contact is smart.
I remember disliking it, but on the rewatch, I was like, oh, this actually is pretty good. How they work around, pretty clever how they work around, continuity.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it clearly happens in a different timeline from.
Okay. By the way, Adam has the best timeline breakdown of Star Trek anyone has ever written.
Totally tongue-in-cheek.
You really need to get that published somewhere, man. We don't have time for it today, but some other time. All right, I have 2 more. One was Affliction and Divergence. I think are worth mentioning because it's pretty high concept to explain why Klingons look like humans in TOS. And my last one, I'm not sure it's high concept, but giving them a shout out because they got zombies into Star Trek. With Impulse.
Vulcan zombies.
Which Star Trek is a show where you can tell any story in any kind of genre, except maybe zombies, but they found a way. It's a spectacular episode. I love Impulse. All right. So many great Enterprise episodes. I knew we'd have a great discussion. But now we're going to move into our regeneration cycle and wind this episode down.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
All right, let's go through a quick breakdown of our picks again, then I'll rattle off some stats. So, Adam, break down your top 5.
Okay, number 5 was the Communicator. Number 4, Cogenitor. Number 3, Observer Effect. Number 2, Twilight. And number 1, the whole darn Zindia.
You cheater. I love it. All right, Jen, how about you?
Okay, number 5, Dead Stop. Number 4, Shockwave Part 2. Number 3, Doctor's Orders. Number 2, Stratagem. And number 1, Similitude.
Awesome list. And my top 5 was Dear Doctor. And number 4 was Dead Stop. Number 3, Observer Effect. Number 2, Similitude. And number 1, Anomaly. So if we break down the stats, we had 1 episode from season 1, 2 from season 4. Both of those were Observer Effect. And we had 5 from season 2, so that's a lot. And 6 from season 3, plus the asterisk of the entire season being picked by Adam. And we had 3 duplicates today. I thought we might have some duplicates with only 4 seasons to choose from Enterprise. So let's give the Defiant another shout out. Okay, guys, anyone having a feeling of deja vu? Or as Worf would say, Nipa? Because guess what? We've entered a temporal causality loop again. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
This week, we're jumping back to episode 25 and our top 5 space battles to get us through this temporal causality loop. That episode was a super fun one. We had our good friends, the Trek Geeks, on, and as per usual, our listeners did not let us down in terms of feedback. We got a ton of cool deep cut picks for that topic. So because we got a lot of feedback, a lot of the feedback was similar, actually. So we did have like a lot of votes for the Mutara Nebula battle, and Balance of Terror got a lot of votes, which was cool. That was on my list. We had the DS9 battles in The Way of the Warrior and Sacrifice of Angels and Tears of the Prophets. But I wanted to highlight 3 or 4 of my favorite picks that were just deep cut picks. And I can't even believe I'm doing this, Adam, but yours is number 1 on the list. I made this list before I was going to even know what this show was. So first up is Adam Hunault on Twitter. And I'm pretty sure you're the only one that picked the prefix code battle from the Wrath of Khan.
Totally the best one.
I know, it was so great. It was such a great pick. I love that one. Another great deep cut was from Phil Stalker on Twitter, who chose the Death of Core from Once More Under the Breach in Deep Space Nine. I absolutely love that pick because
that's a great one.
It couldn't have been any cooler. The special effects in that is amazing. And then Brian Harrington, who is at Celtic Man 50 on Twitter, he chose the Founders, kicking some serious butt on the combined Obsidian Order and Tal Shiar fleet in the Dias cast, which was a cool pick. And then we also had Chris at Shelf Nerds. We'll close out this week's Temporal Causality Loop. He chose Azadi Prime with the good old NX-01, was basically just getting blown out of the sky by the Xindi. Love that pick too.
Hey, you know what no one mentioned in the episode, and nobody mentioned it here? Yesterday's Enterprise.
Oh yeah, that is a great one. I don't think we got any Yesterday's Enterprise picks. That's a classic. Well, that's the beauty of TrekRanks. The lists just keep going, and you never cover it all. All right, that was a fun show. And as always, I just want to thank everyone for continuing to respond to TrekRanks. And we love getting all your feedback and picks. So keep those lists coming to @TrekRanks so we can retweet them. But also we want to hear from you too. So put together your own list of top 5 high-concept Enterprise episodes. Give us a call. Tell us your list. You can call us at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we have got a great, fun topic for you. We're doing our top 5 Trek divas. Yep, this one's going to be fun. I'm hoping it's going to be a really campy show because we're going to be good. We're going to be joined by our good friend Adam Drozen, who was with us previously for the top 5 food moments where we originated the soup round early on in Trek Ranks. So I think it's going to be an awesome episode. So Adam and Jen, anything jumping out at you guys right away that you would immediately include on your top 5 Trek divas list? Adam?
Now, are we just talking about like actual singers or just people who act like divas?
However you want to define a diva.
Grand Nagus Zek.
Yeah, oh, fantastic. He is such a diva.
Such a diva.
That is such a great pick. Adam, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to have to go with General Trelane, retired.
Oh, Trelane.
That's a good one.
Also a major diva. This show is going to be fun. So, all right. So before we wrap it up, a huge thanks to Adam Hunault and to Jenn Tifft, Eat at Quarks, 2 very awesome guests who know their Trek. Thanks, guys. Hope you had fun. Any final thoughts here before we close out?
Well, if Drozen doesn't want to do the diva episode, have us back.
Seriously, yeah. We got this.
Oh, obviously you guys would kill it with Grand Nagus Zek and Trelane. I didn't even think of yet. I've been working on my list already, and I did not have either one of those on there. I love it. All right, Jen, it was great having you. We're definitely going to have you back and keep those lists coming because your picks are awesome.
Thank you so much. I had a wonderful time. It was so much fun.
All right.
Anytime.
So did we. And thanks again, everyone, for engaging with us here on episode 27 of the TrekRanks Podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Engage monitor.
Come to Quarks. Quarks is fun. Come right now. Don't walk. Run!
Oh, I love the part where my name rotates around.
Hi there, thanks again for listening. If you're cruising the galaxy looking for even more Trek talk, why not visit our good friends Bill and Dan over at TrekGeeks.com? They've got a great podcast that covers a wide range of Star Trek topics, so you're sure to find something you'll love. And if you're in the mood for some awesome tunes, then you really need to head over to 5yearmission.net. The guys are writing a song for every episode of the original series, and each one is absolutely brilliant. So that's TrekGeeks.com and 5yearmission.net. Check them out today.
When I was in my early 20s on a trip to East Africa, I saw a gazelle giving birth. It was truly amazing. Within minutes, the baby was standing up on its own. A few more minutes, and it was walking, and before I knew it, it was running alongside its mother, moving away with the herd. Humans aren't like that, Ambassador. We may come from the same planet as those gazelles, but we're pretty much helpless when we're born. It takes us months before we're able to crawl, almost a full year before we can walk. Our deep space mission isn't much different. We're going to stumble, make mistakes, I'm sure more than a few before we find our footing. But we're going to learn from those mistakes. That's what being human is all about. I'm sorry you can't see that.